In a busy city neighborhood, where life buzzed with energy and people moved about their daily routines, tensions between the police and the community were always simmering under the surface. It wasn't uncommon to see patrol cars driving slowly down the streets or officers stopping residents for reasons that often felt unclear. Among the many faces in this vibrant yet tense part of town was Maya Thompson, a woman who seemed like just another ordinary resident. She lived in a modest apartment, drove an unremarkable car, and blended into the crowd effortlessly. What no one, not even the police, knew was that Maya was far from ordinary. Beneath her calm and approachable exterior lay a sharp mind, years of training, and a secret identity. She was a highly skilled operative working undercover for the CIA. Maya's current mission was one of the most challenging she had ever undertaken. For months, she had been embedded in the heart of a dangerous criminal organization operating within the city. Her job was to gather intelligence, identify key players, and dismantle the network from the inside without blowing her cover. This required patience, precision, and nerves of steel. On this particular day, Maya had parked her silver sedan near a small convenience store on the corner of 5th Street. She wasn't there to buy snacks or run errands. Instead, she was waiting for a confidential informant, a person who could provide crucial information about the syndicate's next big move. As she sat in her car, scrolling through her phone to appear casual, Maya kept a close eye on her surroundings. Years of experience had taught her to stay alert at all times. Everything seemed normal until 2 police officers approached her vehicle. At first glance, they looked like any other pair of cops on patrol, uniformed, armed, and authoritative. But as they drew closer, Maya noticed something unsettling in their body language. Their steps were deliberate, almost predatory, and their eyes scanned her car with suspicion. One of the officers tapped on her window, gesturing for her to roll it down. Maya complied immediately, maintaining a neutral expression. "Good afternoon, officer," she said politely, her voice steady. "Is there a problem?" The taller of the 2 officers leaned down, his face inches from hers. "License and registration," he barked, ignoring her question. His tone was curt, leaving no room for negotiation. Maya nodded and reached for her purse, careful to move slowly so as not to alarm them. She handed over her documents, all perfectly legitimate, though they didn't reveal anything about her true profession. "What are you doing here?" the second officer asked, his arms crossed. His tone carried an edge of hostility that made Maya's stomach tighten. She answered calmly, explaining that she was waiting for a friend. The explanation seemed reasonable enough, but the officers weren't satisfied. They exchanged skeptical glances before launching into a barrage of questions. Why was she parked here? Did she live in the area? Where was she coming from? Each question came faster than the last, creating an atmosphere of pressure and intimidation. Maya remained composed, answering each query with clarity and confidence. She knew better than to show frustration or fear. It would only give them more ammunition to use against her. Still, she couldn't help but notice the subtle shift in their demeanor. Their words grew sharper, their accusations more pointed. One officer accused her of loitering, while the other claimed her presence in the area was suspicious. Neither accusation held water, but that didn't stop them from escalating the situation. At one point, the taller officer opened her car door and began searching inside. Maya protested gently, reminding him that he needed probable cause to conduct such a search. He ignored her, rummaging through her belongings as if she weren't even there. The act was invasive and humiliating, but Maya bit her tongue. She couldn't afford to draw attention to herself, not now, when she was so close to cracking the case she'd worked so hard on. As the minutes ticked by, a small crowd began to gather. Neighbors passing by stopped to watch, curiosity turning to concern as they witnessed the interaction unfold. Some whispered among themselves, shaking their heads at the unfairness of it all. Others pulled out their phones, filming the scene discreetly. Maya caught snippets of their conversations, comments about how this kind of thing happened too often, how people like her were treated differently simply because of the color of their skin. Though she appreciated their support, she wished they would disperse. The last thing she needed was for the criminal she was investigating to catch wind of her predicament. Despite her efforts to remain calm and cooperative, the officer's behavior grew increasingly aggressive. They ordered her out of the car, accusing her of being evasive and uncooperative. When she hesitated, unsure whether complying would make things worse, they grabbed her arms roughly and forced her onto the sidewalk. The sound of handcuffs clicking, shut around her wrists, sent a chill down her spine. This wasn't supposed to happen, not to someone like her, someone who dedicated her life to protecting others. Yet here she was, standing on the street in broad daylight, treated like a criminal for no reason other than prejudice. Maya took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus. She reminded herself that this was temporary, that she could handle whatever came next. But deep down, anger bubbled beneath the surface, anger at the injustice of it all, at the way these men wielded their power with such reckless abandon. Still, she held her tongue, knowing that revealing her true identity now would jeopardize everything she had worked for. So she stood there, silent and resolute, waiting for the moment when she could turn the tables, and she knew that moment would come sooner rather than later. As the handcuffs tightened around Maya's wrists, she felt a mix of emotions swirling inside her: anger, frustration, and disbelief. But above all, she felt a deep sense of calm. Years of training had taught her to stay focused in high-pressure situations, and this was no exception. While the two officers continued their tirade, accusing her of everything from resisting arrest to fitting the description of a suspect in unrelated crimes, Maya kept her eyes forward, her expression unreadable. She knew better than to argue, or react impulsively. Every word she spoke, every move she made had to be deliberate. The taller officer, whose nameplate read, "Officer Harris," barked another command. "Don't move," he snapped, as if she had any intention of doing so. His partner, Officer Grayson, stood slightly behind him, his arms crossed and his face twisted into a scowl. Both men radiated hostility, their body language making it clear they saw her not as a person, but as a problem to be dealt with swiftly and harshly. Maya's mind raced as she assessed the situation. She calculated the risks of revealing her true identity versus staying silent. If she told them who she really was, a CIA operative, they might back off, but it could also blow her cover entirely. The criminal syndicate she was investigating was deeply entrenched in the community, and exposing herself now could put her mission and potentially innocent lives at risk. On the other hand, letting this charade continue meant enduring further humiliation and possibly worse consequences. For now, she decided to play along, buying herself time until a better opportunity presented itself. The officer's accusations grew more absurd by the minute. "You've been seen hanging around here a lot lately," Officer Harris said, his voice dripping with accusation. "People have reported suspicious activity." Maya raised an eyebrow, her composure unshaken. "Suspicious activity?" she repeated calmly. "I'm just waiting for a friend. I haven't done anything wrong." Her measured tone only seemed to irritate them further. Officer Grayson stepped closer, his boots crunching against the pavement. "Yeah? Then why are you acting so defensive?" he demanded. "Defensive?" Maya almost laughed at the irony. She hadn't raised her voice, resisted, or even questioned their authority beyond pointing out basic facts. Yet somehow, her very existence was being treated as a threat. Meanwhile, the crowd that had gathered earlier continued to grow. Some people filmed the scene on their phones, while others called out to the officers asking what crime Maya had committed. A young woman holding a toddler on her hip shouted, "She hasn't done anything. Why are you harassing her?" An older man chimed in, shaking his head. "This happens too often. They always pick on the same people." The officers ignored the protests, though their body language suggested they were growing uneasy under the scrutiny. Officer Harris glanced over his shoulder, clearly aware of the attention they were attracting. He turned back to Maya, his jaw clenched. "Get in the car," he ordered, jerking his thumb toward the squad car parked nearby. Maya hesitated for a moment, then took a step forward, careful not to provoke them further. She knew arguing would only escalate things, and she needed to keep control of the situation, even if it felt like control was slipping away. As they walked her to the patrol car, Maya noticed something. One of the bystanders filming the scene looked familiar. It was Marcus Hale, her handler and close colleague at the CIA. Dressed in civilian clothes, he blended seamlessly into the crowd, but Maya recognized him instantly. Their eyes met briefly, and she saw a flicker of concern in his gaze. Marcus gave a subtle nod, signaling that he understood the gravity of the situation and was ready to intervene if necessary. For now, though, he stayed in the background, allowing Maya to navigate the predicament on her own. Once at the squad car, Officer Grayson opened the rear door and motioned for Maya to get in. She hesitated again, glancing at Marcus from the corner of her eye. He was still filming, his phone held casually at his side. She realized he was gathering evidence, not just for her sake, but for the larger issue at play here. This wasn't just about her. It was about the systemic injustices that allowed moments like this to happen over and over again. "Are you deaf?" Officer Harris barked, pushing her shoulder roughly. Maya flinched but didn't resist. She slid onto the cold leather seat of the squad car, her hands still cuffed behind her back. The door slammed shut with a loud thud, leaving her alone in the cramped space. Through the window, she could see the officers conferring with each other, their expressions tense. The crowd outside continued to murmur in protest, their voices rising in outrage. For a few minutes, Maya sat silently, processing everything that had happened. She replayed the officers' words in her mind, dissecting their tone and choice of language. There was no denying it. Their treatment of her had been fueled by bias. She wasn't naive. She knew racism existed, especially within institutions like law enforcement. But experiencing it firsthand, despite her accomplishments and contributions to national security, was sobering. It reminded her of why she had chosen this line of work in the first place, to fight injustice wherever it reared its ugly head. Just as Maya began contemplating her next move, a sleek black SUV pulled up beside the patrol car. The engine roared, softly as it came to a stop, drawing everyone's attention. Out stepped Marcus Hale, no longer trying to blend in. He strode toward the officers with purpose, his posture commanding respect. In his hand, he held a badge, which he flashed without hesitation. "Agent Marcus Hale, CIA," he announced, his voice firm and authoritative. "What's going on here?" Officer Harris frowned, clearly caught off guard. "This is police business," he replied gruffly. "Who are you again?" Marcus didn't miss a beat. "I asked you a question first," he said, his tone sharp enough to cut through steel. "Why is my colleague sitting in your squad car in handcuffs?" He gestured toward Maya, who remained seated, watching the exchange unfold with quiet satisfaction. The officers exchanged nervous glances, suddenly unsure of themselves. Officer Grayson stammered, We thought she was involved in something suspicious. We're just doing our job." "Doing your job?" Marcus echoed, raising an eyebrow. "By detaining a federal agent without cause? Interesting way to uphold the law." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folder containing classified documents. Flipping it open, he showed the officers photographs and credentials confirming Maya's status as a CIA operative. "Does this look familiar?" he asked, tapping the document for emphasis. The color drained from Officer Harris's face as he scanned the papers. "Wait, you mean she's—" He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Officer Grayson looked equally stunned, his earlier bravado evaporating. "Yes," Marcus said curtly. "She's one of ours. And unless you want to explain yourselves to someone much higher up the chain of command, I suggest you release her immediately." The officers scrambled to comply, unlocking the squad car and removing Maya's handcuffs with trembling hands. As soon as she was free, Maya straightened her posture and fixed them with a steely glare. "I hope you realize how serious this is," she said, her voice icy and controlled. "Your conduct today will be thoroughly investigated, you can count on that." The officers mumbled apologies, their earlier arrogance replaced by shame and fear. Around them, the crowd erupted in cheers and applause, celebrating the reversal of power. Someone shouted, "Justice served!" while another added, "About time someone stood up to them." Maya took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief and vindication wash over her. She turned to Marcus, who gave her a small, approving nod. Together, they walked back to the SUV, leaving the officers and the lingering tension behind. As they drove away, Maya glanced out the window at the neighborhood she had come to know so well. Despite the day's events, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about her, it was about sending a message, and she intended to make sure it was heard loud and clear. After the dramatic confrontation with the officers, Maya and Marcus climbed into the sleek black SUV, leaving behind a scene that had drawn both cheers and murmurs of disbelief from the crowd. As the car pulled away from the curb, Maya leaned back in her seat, exhaling deeply for the first time since the ordeal began. Her hands, now free of the cold metal cuffs, rested on her lap, but the weight of what had just happened lingered heavily in her mind. The adrenaline rush was fading, replaced by a swirl of emotions, anger, frustration, and a deep sense of resolve. Marcus glanced at her briefly before focusing on the road ahead. "You all right?" he asked, his tone softening. Despite his calm exterior, Maya could see the tension in his jaw. He wasn't just concerned about her well-being, he was furious at what had transpired. Years of working together had forged a bond between them, one built on mutual respect and shared experiences. Marcus knew Maya's strength and resilience better than anyone, but even he couldn't deny how unjustly she had been treated. "I'm fine," Maya replied after a moment, her voice steady, despite the storm brewing inside her. "But we both know this isn't over. Not by a long shot." She turned to look out the window, watching as the city streets blurred past. The neighborhood they were leaving behind was a microcosm of larger systemic issues, where prejudice often masqueraded as authority. What had happened today wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern, one that Maya had seen play out countless times before, but never against herself. Marcus nodded, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "We'll handle it," he said firmly. "First things first, Internal Affairs is going to have a field day with this. Those officers crossed every line imaginable. They're not getting away with it." Maya appreciated his determination, but she also knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Investigations into police misconduct rarely resulted in swift justice, especially when those involved were part of the system itself. Still, she trusted Marcus to navigate the bureaucratic maze and ensure accountability. For now, though, she needed to focus on damage control. Her cover was still intact, for the most part, but the incident had drawn unwanted attention. If word got back to the criminal syndicate she was investigating, all her hard work could unravel in an instant. As they drove, Marcus broke the silence. "You handled yourself well out there," he said, glancing at her again. "I mean, I expected nothing less, but still, staying calm under pressure like that, not everyone can pull it off." Maya gave him a small, wry smile. "What choice did I have? Losing my cool wouldn't have helped anyone. Besides, I've been trained for worse situations than this." Her words carried a hint of dark humor, but there was truth in them. Over the years, Maya had faced life-threatening scenarios abroad, navigating hostile environments and outsmarting adversaries far more dangerous than two misguided officers. Yet none of those encounters had cut quite as deeply as this one. This wasn't about physical danger. It was about being stripped of dignity simply because of who she was, a black woman in a world that too often judged her based on stereotypes rather than merit. The SUV came to a stop at a red light, and Marcus took the opportunity to turn toward her fully. "Listen," he said, his voice low and earnest. "I know you don't need me to tell you how ridiculous this whole thing was, but I want you to know, I'm here for you. Whatever you decide to do next, I've got your back." Maya met his gaze, gratitude flickering in her eyes. "Thanks, Marcus," she said softly. "That means a lot." She paused, collecting her thoughts. "But honestly, this isn't just about me anymore. It's bigger than that. People see these kinds of things happen every day and they feel powerless to stop it. Maybe this is our chance to make a difference." Marcus raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What are you thinking?" Maya hesitated, weighing her words carefully. We expose it, she said finally. Not just the officer's misconduct, but everything. The systemic racism, the abuse of power, the way people like me are treated differently. We use this moment to shine a light on what's really going on. And maybe, just maybe, we inspire others to speak up too. Her idea caught Marcus off guard, but only for a moment. He nodded slowly, considering the implications. It's risky, he admitted. Going public could blow your cover completely. Are you sure you're ready for that? Maya didn't answer right away. She stared out the windshield, watching as the light turned green and the city traffic resumed its flow. The decision wasn't one to be made lightly. If she went public, she would be stepping out of the shadows, not just as a victim of injustice, but as someone willing to fight back. It would mean sacrificing her anonymity, putting herself in the spotlight and potentially jeopardizing her mission. But it would also send a powerful message, one that could resonate far beyond the confines of this neighborhood. I'm sure, she said finally, her voice firm. This is bigger than me, bigger than my mission. If I can help bring attention to these issues, if I can give a voice to the voiceless, then it's worth it. Besides, she smirked faintly. It's not like I haven't dealt with high-stakes situations before. Marcus chuckled, shaking his head. All right, Agent Thompson, you're the boss. Let's do this. Over the next few days, Maya and Marcus worked tirelessly to gather evidence and build a case against the officers involved. They compiled footage from bystanders, reviewed body camera recordings, and documented every detail of the incident. Meanwhile, news of the altercation spread quickly through social media, sparking outrage across the city. Hashtags like Justice for Maya and police brutality trended online, drawing attention to the broader issue of racial profiling and police misconduct. Maya watched the growing movement with a mix of pride and apprehension. On one hand, she was heartened to see so many people rallying around the cause. On the other hand, she knew the backlash would be fierce. Critics would accuse her of playing the victim, of using her position to gain sympathy. Some might even question whether she deserved special treatment because of her role as a federal agent. But Maya refused to let fear dictate her actions. She had spent her career fighting for justice in the shadows. Now, it was time to step into the light. When the story finally broke in the media, it sent shockwaves through the community. Headlines screamed about the wrongful arrest of a decorated CIA operative, while interviews with eyewitnesses painted a damning picture of the officer's behavior. The department launched an internal investigation, promising transparency and accountability. Meanwhile, advocacy groups seized the opportunity to push for reforms, organizing protests and calling for policy changes. Through it all, Maya remained steadfast. She gave interviews, spoke at rallies, and used her platform to amplify the voices of those who had suffered similar injustices. Her message was clear. No one should be treated as less than human because of the color of their skin. Whether you were a federal agent, a teacher, a student, or a parent, everyone deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. As the weeks passed, the fallout from the incident continued to unfold. The officers involved were placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation, and several high-ranking officials within the department resigned amid mounting pressure. While some criticized the slow pace of change, others saw hope in the growing momentum. For the first time in a long time, it felt like real progress was possible. For Maya, the experience was transformative. It forced her to confront uncomfortable truths about herself and the world she lived in, but it also strengthened her resolve to keep fighting, not just for justice, but for equality. She returned to her mission with renewed purpose, knowing that the battle ahead would be difficult but worthwhile. And though the scars of that day would always remain, they served as a reminder of why she had chosen this path in the first place: to make a difference, no matter the cost. The weeks following the incident were a whirlwind of activity for Maya. The story of her wrongful arrest had ignited a firestorm, sparking conversations across the nation about systemic racism and police misconduct. News outlets couldn't stop talking about it, Social media was ablaze with hashtags and debates, and community leaders were calling for sweeping reforms. For Maya, the attention was overwhelming but necessary. She knew this moment wasn't just about her. It was about amplifying the voices of countless others who had faced similar injustices in silence. Maya spent her days balancing two worlds: her public role as a symbol of resilience and accountability, and her covert mission to dismantle the criminal syndicate she had been investigating. Each morning began with meetings at the CIA headquarters, where Marcus and their team strategized how to keep her cover intact while leveraging the growing spotlight on her case. They agreed that going public had risks, but it also presented an opportunity. By exposing the officers' misconduct, they could send a message not only to law enforcement, but also to the criminals Maya was targeting. If played right, this could destabilize the syndicate's trust in anyone around them, even someone like Maya, who had blended seamlessly into their ranks until now. By afternoon, Maya shifted gears, stepping into her new role as an advocate for change. She attended press conferences, spoke at rallies, and appeared on talk shows, using her platform to shed light on the systemic issues plaguing marginalized communities. Her calm demeanor and articulate speeches captivated audiences, earning her both admiration and criticism. Some praised her courage, hailing her as a hero who dared to stand up against injustice. Others accused her of exploiting her status as a federal agent to gain sympathy, dismissing her efforts as self-serving. But Maya tuned out the noise, focusing instead on the bigger picture. One particularly memorable event took place at a community center in the heart of the neighborhood where she had been detained. Hundreds of people packed the auditorium, eager to hear her speak. As Maya stepped onto the stage, the room erupted in applause. She smiled warmly, taking a moment to acknowledge the crowd before beginning her speech. "Thank you all for being here today," she started, her voice steady and clear. "What happened to me is something many of you have experienced firsthand, or seen happen to loved ones. It's not unique to me. It's part of a pattern, one that has gone unaddressed for far too long." She paused, letting her words sink in. The room fell silent, every eye fixed on her. "I'm standing here not because I want pity or special treatment," she continued. "I'm here because we need to talk about what happens when power goes unchecked, when people are judged by the color of their skin rather than the content of their character. What happened to me wasn't just an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a much larger problem. And unless we confront that problem head-on, it will continue to harm innocent lives." Her words struck a chord, prompting murmurs of agreement throughout the audience. A young woman seated near the front raised her hand tentatively. When Maya nodded for her to speak, she stood up, her voice trembling. "I've been stopped by the police so many times for no reason," she said. "Each time I felt powerless, like there was nothing I could do. How do you stay strong when things feel hopeless?" Maya thought for a moment before responding. "It's okay to feel angry, frustrated, even scared," she said gently. "Those emotions are valid, but don't let them consume you. Instead, channel them into action. Speak up, share your story, stand together with others who are fighting for change. That's how we create momentum, and that's how we make sure our voices are heard." As the evening wore on, more people shared their experiences, creating a powerful sense of solidarity. Maya listened intently, nodding along and offering words of encouragement whenever someone hesitated. By the end of the event, the atmosphere was electric, a mix of hope, determination, and renewed energy. People left the auditorium feeling empowered, ready to take on the challenges ahead. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Maya's work with the criminal syndicate intensified. The exposure from the incident had inadvertently worked in her favor, planting seeds of doubt among the organization's leaders. Whispers began to circulate within the group, questioning whether Maya might be more than she appeared. One member, a wiry man named Darius, voiced his suspicions during a clandestine meeting. "She's always been quiet, kept to herself," he said, narrowing his eyes. "But now everyone's talking about her. You really think that's a coincidence?" The leader of the syndicate, a ruthless enforcer known only as King, leaned back in his chair, stroking his chin thoughtfully. Coincidences don't exist in this line of work, he replied. If she's hiding something, we'll find out soon enough. Until then, keep an eye on her, but don't tip her off. Maya sensed the shift in dynamics almost immediately. Conversations became guarded, movements more calculated. Trust, once freely given, was now rationed carefully. It was a dangerous game, one that required her to tread lightly while maintaining her cover. She doubled down on her efforts, feeding false information to the syndicate and sowing discord among its members. Every move she made brought her closer to dismantling the network entirely, but also closer to being discovered. Back at home, Maya found solace in moments of quiet reflection. Sitting on her couch late at night, she often replayed the events of the past few weeks in her mind. The memory of those handcuffs clicking shut around her wrists still haunted her, a visceral reminder of how quickly freedom could be stripped away. Yet she refused to let bitterness take root. Instead, she channeled her emotions into fuel for her mission, reminding herself why she had chosen this path in the first place. One evening, as she scrolled through social media, she came across a post from a teenager who had attended one of her rallies. The caption read, "Because of Agent Thompson, I know my voice matters. Thank you for showing us that change is possible." Beneath it was a photo of the girl holding a handmade sign that read, "Justice starts with us." Maya stared at the image for a long time, a lump forming in her throat. In that moment, she realized the true impact of her actions. This wasn't just about taking down a criminal syndicate or holding corrupt officers accountable. It was about inspiring others to believe in their own power. It was about proving that even in the face of adversity, resilience could spark a movement. The next day, Maya returned to the field with renewed determination. She met with her informant, a nervous young man named Jamal, who provided crucial intel about the syndicate's upcoming operations. Together, they pieced together a plan to expose the group's activities to the authorities. Maya's meticulous attention to detail ensured that every loose end was tied up, every risk accounted for. She knew the final phase of her mission would be the most dangerous, but she also knew it would be worth it. As the sun set over the city skyline, Maya stood on a rooftop overlooking the bustling streets below. The lights twinkled like stars, casting a warm glow over the neighborhoods she had come to care deeply about. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to imagine a future where justice prevailed, not just for her, but for everyone. It was a daunting vision, one that would require relentless effort and unwavering commitment. But Maya was ready. She had faced the worst the world had to offer and emerged stronger for it. Whatever lay ahead, she would face it with the same courage and resolve that had carried her this far. And so, with the city spread out before her, Maya took a deep breath and prepared for the final chapter of her journey. A chapter that would test her limits, challenge her beliefs, and ultimately define her legacy. The final phase of Maya's mission unfolded with precision and intensity, a culmination of months of planning, patience, and perseverance. Every detail she had meticulously gathered, every intercepted message, every whispered conversation, every careless boast from the syndicate's members was now being woven into a web that would trap the organization once and for all. The stakes were higher than ever, but Maya felt a quiet confidence. She had faced adversity before, and this time was no different. With her team at the CIA backing her and the community rallying behind her cause, she knew she wasn't alone. It began on a chilly autumn morning when Maya received a cryptic text from Jamal, her informant. "Meet me at the usual spot," it read. "We've got something big." Her heart raced as she drove to the abandoned warehouse where they often exchanged information. When she arrived, Jamal was pacing nervously, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. His eyes darted around, checking for anyone who might be watching. "You okay?" Maya asked, stepping closer. Jamal nodded quickly but didn't look entirely convinced. Yeah, I'm fine," he muttered. "But listen, we overheard King talking last night. They're planning a major deal tomorrow night. Weapons, cash, everything, if we can stop it." Maya's mind immediately went to work. This was the break she had been waiting for, the chance to deliver a crushing blow to the syndicate. But timing was critical. One wrong move could jeopardize not only her mission, but also Jamal's safety. She placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You did good, Jamal. Now leave the rest to me." Back at CIA headquarters, Maya briefed Marcus and the rest of her team. Maps were spread across the table, surveillance footage replayed frame by frame, and strategies debated until everyone was confident in the plan. It was decided that Maya would infiltrate the meeting under the guise of delivering sensitive intel, a fabricated document designed to expose internal weaknesses within the syndicate. Once inside, she would signal the authorities, who would swoop in and make arrests. The night of the operation arrived thick with tension. Dressed in dark clothing and armed with both her wits and a concealed tracking device, Maya approached the dimly lit warehouse where the deal was set to take place. The air smelled of rust and oil, and the distant hum of machinery echoed through the empty streets. As she slipped through the shadows, she reminded herself why she was doing this, not just to bring down criminals, but to protect the innocent lives caught in their crossfire. Inside, the scene was chaotic, yet calculated. Syndicate members bustled about, counting stacks of cash and inspecting crates filled with illegal weapons. King stood at the center, his imposing figure commanding attention. Maya moved cautiously, blending into the background while keeping an eye on her surroundings. When the moment came, she handed over the fake documents, pretending they contained vital information that could shift the balance of power in their favor. King scanned the papers briefly, before nodding approvingly. "Good work," he said gruffly. "Now get out of here. We'll handle the rest." Maya didn't need to be told twice. She retreated toward the exit, activating the tracking device hidden in her pocket. Within minutes, the sound of sirens pierced the night air, followed by shouts and the pounding of boots as law enforcement stormed the building. Chaos erupted as officers swarmed the area, arresting key members of the syndicate and seizing evidence. King tried to flee but was tackled to the ground, his face contorted in rage as handcuffs clicked shut around his wrists. From a safe distance, Maya watched as the operation unfolded, her chest swelling with pride. Years of hard work, sacrifice, and resilience had led to this moment. The syndicate that had terrorized the community for so long was finally crumbling, its leaders brought to justice. As ambulances and news vans arrived on the scene, reporters began setting up cameras, eager to capture the story. Maya knew this victory would dominate headlines, serving as a reminder that even the most entrenched systems of corruption could be dismantled with determination and unity. In the days that followed, the nation celebrated the takedown of one of its most notorious criminal organizations. Law enforcement agencies praised Maya's contributions, though her name remained largely absent from official reports to protect her identity. Behind closed doors, however, she became a legend among her peers, a symbol of what could be achieved when courage met strategy. But Maya didn't stop there. She used the momentum from the arrest to push for broader reforms, advocating for changes in policing practices and increased accountability measures. At a press conference held weeks later, she addressed the public once more, her voice steady and impassioned. "This victory is not mine alone," she began, scanning the sea of faces before her. "It belongs to every person who has ever stood up against injustice, who has refused to stay silent in the face of oppression. What happened to me, and to countless others, is a reflection of systemic issues that cannot be ignored. We must continue to demand better, to hold institutions accountable, and to build a future where everyone is treated with dignity and respect." Her words resonated deeply, sparking conversations about race, privilege, and responsibility. Schools invited her to speak to students. Community groups organized workshops inspired by her message, and advocacy organizations launched campaigns aimed at fostering dialogue and driving change. Maya embraced her role as a catalyst for progress, knowing that true justice required collective effort. Privately, Maya reflected on how far she had come since that fateful day in the parking lot. The incident with the officers had been humiliating and painful, but it had also been transformative. It had forced her to confront uncomfortable truths about herself and the world she lived in, ultimately strengthening her resolve to fight for equality. Though scars remained, both visible and invisible, She wore them as badges of honor, reminders of battles fought and lessons learned. As life slowly returned to normal, Maya found joy in the small moments, sharing laughter with Marcus over coffee, walking through her neighborhood without fear, and mentoring young activists eager to make a difference. She realized that while her journey as a CIA operative might eventually come to an end, her role as an advocate for justice never would. There was always more work to be done, more voices to amplify, more barriers to break. One evening, as she sat on her balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, Maya allowed herself to dream of the future. She imagined a world where stories like hers weren't extraordinary, they were expected. A world where fairness and compassion triumphed over prejudice and hate, and though she knew such a vision wouldn't come easily, she believed it was possible. After all, if a single act of resistance could spark a movement, then anything was achievable. With renewed purpose, Maya rose from her chair and stepped back inside. Tomorrow awaited, filled with challenges and opportunities alike. Whatever lay ahead, she was ready. For Maya Thompson, the fight for justice was far from over, but neither was her determination to see it through.